The second race village of the 2021 Absa Cape Epic was hosted by the Koabokkevel town of Ceres. After the grand depart and the prologue on the slopes of Table Mountain in Cape Town, the first marathon stage began the exploration of the Western Cape hinterland. Boulders litter the mountainside while emerald green orchards grow verdant in the broad valleys. In the men's race on stage 1, the 98 kilometres provided excitement throughout. Initially, the men in yellow, 91 Songo specialised, Matt Beers and Jordan Saru, were responsible for animating the race. The overall leaders broke away on the Deadman walking climb to the Dimension Data hotspot. On the single-track descent that followed, Beers and Saru continued to extend their advantage. Unfortunately for the leaders on the undulating roads and trails across the Eersfontein Valley floor, Beers lost the use of the lower 3 gears on his cassette. This meant he had to spin rather than power on the flats, which allowed the chasing group of Bulls 1 and 2 as well as Canyon Northwave MTB to catch the 91 Songo specialised men. The 4 teams then raced through the closing kilometres together before Urs Huber and Simon Schneller sprinted to the stage victory. Martin Fry and Simon Stiepjan were second for Team Bulls and Canyon Northwave third. With 91 Songo Specialised finishing fourth, just 5 seconds behind the stage winners, they effectively firmed up their grip on the yellow jerseys because of BMC KTM's mechanical problems. Matt Beers and Jordan Saru thus lead by 1 minute and 47 seconds over Andreas Seewald and Martin Stosek. In the women's race, 91 Songo Specialised were in imperious form. The winners of the prologue continued their fast-paced charge through the Absa Cape Epic on stage 1. Having bided their time early in the day, Sina Fry and Laura Stigger upped the tempo on the Deadman walking climb near the midpoint of the course. They distanced their rivals and continued to extend their advantage on the Land Rover technical terrain descent. Try as they may, Team Salusmed and Absa African jersey wearers Faces CST could not reel Fry and Stigger back in. By the time the women in orange crossed the finish line, their lead was 4 minutes and 51 seconds. Ariane Luthi and Robin de Groot finished second, ahead of Candice Lill and Mariska Strauss. The result gives 91 Songo Specialised a 6 minute and 29 second general classification advantage over Team Salusmed. Faces CST lie at 13 minutes and 35 seconds, heading into stage 2. The third day and stage 2 of the 2021 Absa Cape Epic takes the teams from Ceres to Soronsberg. The 96 kilometre route is the Queen stage and includes the Old Gedo Pass as well as the Skuurberg Land Rover technical terrain. Once in the Witzenberg Valley, the trails become increasingly technical with more rises and falls than can be seen on the route profile. After the ascent to the highest point of the day, it was all downhill on an old wagon trail to Tilbach. Then home to Soronsberg for the first of 2 nights in the Wine Estate Race Village. The day ahead was set to be a challenging one and had to be approached with cautious optimism.
Yeah, today we have some long climbs, 2 long climbs, and then in the end the long downhill. I remember some years ago I had a flat tire there, so we have to be a bit careful. But yeah, it's nice. It's a nice track, and we like Tulbach a lot. I won my first stage there in the Cape Epic, so I have good memories, and that's a positive sign.
Rolling off the start line in Ceres, the men were led off the school fields by the yellow jerseys of Matt Beers and Jordan Saru. A neutral zone through town ensured the group had time to spin their legs up to speed for the long day ahead. The benign early kilometres facilitated a sedate start. With no single tracks in the first 30 kilometres, there was no need to jostle for positions near the front of the group. With the Witzenberg Valley's rugged trails ahead, conserving energy by avoiding unnecessary accelerations and stress was the order of the morning. Every molecule of energy saved here could be better used when the racing got hot later. Meanwhile, the women were preparing for their assault on stage 2.
So it's a 96 kilometre stage with 2,100 climbing. We know exactly what's coming. We've seen this stage before. It's a tough one. So we are going to try and play our strengths where we can and go according to plan, hopefully today. But if not, we'll fight to the end.
Departing from Ceres on the Queen stage, the women's field were as reticent to race from the gun as the men were before them. The official neutral zone through the back streets of Ceres was followed by an unofficial truce on the district roads which followed. This provided an opportunity to take stock of who was racing in the elite women's field. Along with the event's main protagonists, 91 Songo Specialized, Salusmed and Faces CST, the women's teams were Computer Mania, Fairtree, Live Lapierre Racing, Galileo Infinity Spot, Mitre Cycles Darnaville, Honey Custom Apparel and the Land Rover Ladies. Clear blue skies early in the stage hinted at the warm temperatures which would come to dominate the later phases of the day. For the elite men, the opening kilometres presented few challenges. Broad gravel roads ensured that the distance ticked down at a pace. The men were too focused on racing to take note of the spectacular scenery as they crossed the Ceres Valley. The only casualties of the tightly packed group were the Buff Scott 2 team. A broken chain put the Spanish riders out of contention. While Enrico Vergara and Jose Ruiz struggled to fix their mechanical, the rest of the men's field charged on. After nearly 20 kilometres of largely flat terrain, the climbing began and started to stretch the field. Though the dual track still allowed the stronger teams to move up, the high pace set by the likes of Team Bulls, Canyon Northwave MTB and 91 Songo Specialized made it nearly impossible to do so. The squads who dominated the general classification thus far were once again on the front foot, driving the race towards the Old Gedo Pass. The only change in personnel for the first 2 days at the sharp end of the race was the Italian Trek Pirelli outfit. Samuele Porro and Italian champion Fabian Rabensteiner had time to make up, having started the day in 6th overall. From early on, however, it was clear that anyone wishing to make up time on Matt Beers and Jordan Saru would have to put in the ride of their careers. As the difficulty of the climbing intensified on the Old Gedo Pass, the 91 Songo Specialized team were content to let their rivals set the tempo. Andreas Seerwold and Martin Stosek of Canyon Northwave had taken on the pacemaking duties. They had Team Bulls, Buff Scott 1, Trek Pirelli and the men in yellow for company. After the brief respite at the summit of the Old Gedo Pass, the men powered into the Land Rover technical terrain. A jarringly rocky single-track climb, Skufberg demanded precise line choices. Given the amount of time Urs Huber had spent training and racing in the region, it was no surprise that the Bull Star led the field through that section. In the women's race, the field remained together, as the men's had through the early gravel road kilometres. With 91 Songo Specialized not needing to up the tempo, the pacemaking duties fell to the Absa African red jersey wearing Candice Lill and Mariska Strauss. The Faces CST team led into the day's first single track, with the rest of the women's field hot on their wheels. Though once the climbing began in earnest on the Old Gedo Pass, Sina Fry and Laura Sticker came to the fore. The orange jerseys are clearly most comfortable riding their own tempo on the ascents and the descents. In the race thus far, they'd proven to be the strongest climbers, but rather than attacking the hills, they simply ride off the front. To avoid having that happen once again, Ariane Luti took the fight to 91 Songo Specialized. Using her local knowledge to good effect, she distanced the race leaders through the Land Rover technical terrain. This left her partner Robin de Groot to follow Fry and Stigger. Within sight but unable to follow, Mariska Strauss and Candice Lill were already having to manage their energy expenditure. With Luti leading by 10 seconds, 91 Songo Specialized summited the Land Rover technical terrain climb with Robin de Groot in tow and Faces CST just behind. In the men's race, Team Bulls Simon Schneller and Urs Huber were leading the field into the Witzenberg Valley. Famed for its spectacularly rugged and testing trails, the Fertile Vale is a major apple-producing region. But it's not for the fruit's ability to keep the doctor at bay that the Bulls spend so much time in the area. The German squad make frequent trips to South Africa and often visit the Witzenberg. Reconnaissance missions like that stood them in good stead on stage 2 of the Absa Cape Epic, when they flew through the single tracks like homegrown racers rather than the international visitors they are. Following the racing lines of Schneller were Canyon Northwave MTB, Buff Scott 1, 91 Songo Specialized, Trek Pirelli, Bulls 2 and the Absa African jersey leaders Piger Eurosteel. With bulls on the front controlling the pace and railing the technical trails like they were on train tracks, the men's group hardly slowed for each challenging feature. Despite being strung out, they remained resolutely in touch with the leaders. By the time the teams reached the western side of the valley, they were still together. In fact, the Type Dev Nanotime team were catching the lead group too. Climbing through the forest, Usu Bern-Simon Schneller continued to set the tempo. The Bulls riders had started the day in 4th place overall and had been on the charge to make up positions on the general classification. The work they were doing was yet to pay dividends, however, as they were unable to shed any of their rivals. When Andreas Seerwold and Martin Storsek of Canyon Northwave came to the front, the tempo immediately lifted. This caused Tiger Eurosteel 2, Type Dev Nanotime and Bulls 2 to lose contact. A few kilometers and more pressure by Canyon Northwave later, only 91 Songo Specialized remained with Seerwold and Storsek. The top 2 teams on the general classification looked set to contest the stage win. Behind them, Team Bulls, Buff Scott and Trek Pirelli were fighting to limit their losses. On the undulating plateau roads on the mountain separating the Witzenberg Valley from Tilbach, the gap was evident. The leaders were constantly just out of view of the chasers, making the pursuit a mental as well as a physical battle. With a formidable 6-kilometer descent to come, the advantage was firmly with Canyon Northwave and 91 Songo Specialized. Ariane Luthi was still off the front in the women's race as they dropped into the Witzenberg Valley. Behind her, 91 Songo Specialized were unfazed as they had the second Team Saluesmed rider, Robin de Groot, locked in behind them on the single track. With her teammate unable to join her attack, Luthi had to ease up and allow Sina Frey, Laura Stigger, de Groot and the Computer Mania team to catch up. Of the favourites, only Faces CST were initially distanced from the leading women's group. But on the trails in the Witzenberg Valley, Mariska Strauss and Candice Lill were slowly able to claw their way back to the Luthi-led pack. After 45 kilometers of racing, Luthi was followed closely by Frey, Stigger of 91 Songo Specialized, her teammate de Groot, Strauss and Lill of Faces CST, as well as Cherie Redeker and Adelaide Morath of Computer Mania. Having been under pressure earlier, Strauss used a wider section of trail to force her way to the front of the group. Once in the lead, the multiple South African cross-country champion was able to control the tempo. Rather than being forced to fight to hold the wheel ahead of her, the Faces CST rider was able to ride her own pace, slowing the riders behind her as they were unable to pass on the narrow single track. By the time the women in orange had managed to pass the Absa African red jersey wearers, the terrain had changed and it was impossible to slip off the front. Thus, the group of 4 women's teams started the climb from the Witzenberg Valley floor to the ridgeline high above in close formation. But with a 10-kilometer climb ahead of them, the route was about to decide the battle. Tactics would play no role when the gradients pitched up to over 10%. Computer Mania were the first team to drop off the pace. Then Faces CST started to slip inexorably back as 91 Songo Specialized set the tempo. Only Saluesmed were able to follow initially. Soon though, even Robin de Groot and Ariane Luthi were distanced by Sina Frey and Laura Stigger. The combination of steep and rocky dual-track surfaces appeared to really suit the Swiss-Austrian combination. They looked comfortable, riding a steady but fast tempo, which their rivals were unable to consistently match. Only Robin de Groot has proven their equal on the climbs, but even she could not follow the 91 Songo Specialized team on the final ramps towards the highest point of the day. She and Ariane Luthi would have to take risks on the old wagon trail descent which followed if they were to close the gap. That would prove difficult, however, given Sina Fry and Laura Stigger's technical proficiency. In the men's race, 91 Songo Specialized started the old wagon trail descent towards Tilbach with Canyon Northwave in tow. Behind them, Trek Pirelli led the chase group into the highly technical single track. Buff Scott and Team Bulls were hot on their wheels. With 2020 world champion Jordan Saru choosing the lines and setting the pace, the men in yellow soon started to edge away from the more cautious Andreas Servalt and Martin Storsek. Behind the chase group, the media e-bike was following Buff Scott's Jose Diaz to provide a first-person view of how challenging the trail was. Regardless of the speed at which the chasers attempted to maintain, there was no reeling Saru and Matt Beers back in. The 91 Songo Specialized men had conserved their energy perfectly for the decisive moment of the stage, and were able to power through the flatter sections of the descent whenever pedaling was possible. Behind them, the Canyon Northwave team were slipping back, losing time to both the leaders and the chasing group behind. Buff Scott, Bulls and Trek Pirelli looked to be in the hunt for not just third, but potentially second place too. Barring a disaster, first was out of their reach though. Once on the gravel roads leading from the foot of the descent to the finish line at Saronsberg, there was no stopping Saru and Beers. Watching them round a corner in the distance, Servalt and Stosek knew their fight was to limit their time losses. The battle for stage victory had been won by 91 Songo Specialized. Jordan Saru and Matt Beers rolled into the finishing straight with time to celebrate. With 3 stages completed, the pair had notched up 2 stage victories and firmed up their grip on the yellow leaders' jerseys. Andreas Servalt and Martin Storsek crossed the finish line 26 seconds later, bent but unbroken. Team Bulls' Simon Schneller and Urs Huber completed the podium places 1 minute and 45 seconds behind the stage winners.
Yeah, everything, like I said to Jordan, we just need to stay at the front like most of the day because it's a lot of single track and I know it bottles up quite a bit, so we did a fantastic job at that. And then near the end, I think on the last time, I slipped on the rocks a bit and then the Canyon guys and Jordan pulled a gap and then it was quite a headwind, so I was suffering quite a lot. I thought then the plan is not going according to plan. But I managed to pull back and then at the exact right moment I just blasted around the outside of a corner and then got on Jordan's wheel and hey, we were back at the original plan and then we executed it perfectly.
91 Songo Specialized winning time was 3 hours 56 minutes and 2 seconds. Behind the podium places, Buff Scott MTB's Hans Becking and Jose Diaz, along with Trek Pirelli, Samueli Porro and Fabian Rabensteiner, completed the top 5. After 3 days of the 2021 Absa Cape Epic, Matt Beers and Jordan Saru lead the men's general classification by 2 minutes and 13 seconds over Andreas Servalt and Martin Storsek. Urs Huber and Simon Schneller moved up to third. In the women's race, 91 Songo Specialized took a handy lead into the old wagon trail descent. Despite that advantage, Sina Fry and Laura Stigger did anything but take it easy. They were clearly having too much fun on the technical trail to exercise caution. They had it all to lose, yet put fun over safety as they flew towards Tilbach and Saronsberg. This put further pressure on Ariane Luthi and Robin de Groot. Like the Faces CST team in third, the Salusmed team had no choice but to chase the leaders as fast as they could. There was no time for calculations, every rider had to simply descend on instinct alone. At the front, Fry and Stigger's racing instincts had served them well, and they reached the valley floor incident-free. As did Robin de Groot and Ariane Luthi behind them. Despite the frantic chase of Team Salusmed, the 91 Songo Specialized team were unstoppable. For the third time in 3 days, Sina Fry and Laura Stigger were first across the Absa Cape Epic finish line. The pair's time for the 96-kilometre stage was 4 hours, 49 minutes and 12 seconds. Ariane Luthi and Robin de Groot sprinted to limit their losses to 1 minute and 2 seconds. Mariska Strauss and Candice Lill were third, 4 minutes and 4 seconds back.
Yeah, of course we would like to move up a little bit in position, but we're keeping it very consistent. Yeah, and with a very long descent like today, we're quite happy to have limited our losses there. No, it's going well. We're still feeling good, and yeah, we're excited for what's ahead.
Yeah, I think a little bit bittersweet for us. We did flat towards the end, so I think if it wasn't for that, we probably could have upped our step. But I think we managed it really well, and it is definitely it's always a pleasure and an honor to be on the podium at the Absa Cape Epic.
With 3 stage wins, 91 Songo Specialized are in ominous form. Behind them on stage 2, Computer Mania MTB raced to 4th on the day, while the Land Rover ladies claimed their first top 5 of the race. Sina Fry and Laura Stigger now lead the general classification by 7 minutes and 32 seconds over Ariane Luthi and Robin de Groot. Mariska Strauss and Candice Lill lost further time to slip to 18 minutes and 10 seconds behind the women in orange. In the Virgin Active Mixed and the Grand Masters categories, the lead remained unchanged. While in the Dimension Data Masters, Carl Platt's withdrawal due to illness handed Craig Uriah and Andrew Duvenage the blue jerseys. Stage 3 is a 91-kilometre loop, starting and finishing in Saronsburg. The trails of Tilbach should be compact and could well be muddy in places where they would have been dry and dusty in the Absa Cape Epic's normal March time slot. Fearsome climbs totaling 2,100 metres of elevation are interspersed with challenging descents. Thereafter, the Assegaibos descent provides a stern test of focus and skill after the sapping slog to the Fanti summit.